Hello, it's me, boy Cryptid. We have extensive news. I cannot believe this is happening, but the law is finally changing and is catching up to AAA games, including gacha games. Let's get into it and see what exactly this entails. I heard it's very big stuff that's going to just change the entire space forever.
Today's video is a true bombshell for the games industry. This is one of those things that can have true impact, so let me explain. What just happened is the European Union just rewrote the rules on premium currency in games. Of course, that's the home of
Okay.
Ubisoft, of CD Projekt, of DICE, of Remedy, and so many other companies.
What they
And
do.
make no mistake, the new rules that they have just laid out could change gaming utterly.
I hope it shows real prices on the currency instead of you having to buy the currency with the real money, then transfer that currency into a different currency. I hope they just completely get rid of all of that and just tell you, hey, this is the kind of money you're spending on this game. Like Wizardly, they tell you straight up, hey, if you want to buy this pack, it's 750. They cut all the bullshit. They tell you exactly what you're getting, or if you're getting currency, they'll tell you how much that currency is, but there's no buy this currency then transfer it to another currency. They give you some deals that tell you what it is, but if you have the currency you earn in game, you can buy that too. Every game needs to be exactly like them, in my personal humble opinion.
Actually change the games that you play. So you know those bundles where you've got to buy more currency than the item that you want costs, or perhaps the idea of limited time events, of no refunds and digital purchases. These are all being fought against by legislators. And when the EU takes action, it's a large enough block that it can.
I think I'm personally, when it comes to gacha games, the whole limited time events, I feel like the initial limited time events are fine, but I feel like selectively they are added to the pool as a whole. I feel like it's so much better after the limited time event, because of course when a new character comes out, you want to spend have people get the chance to get that character, but still have it still be a gacha game. Perfectly fine. Later on, if it's added into a pool or you have to get certain currency built up to get that character later on specifically, that is fine. But them just being completely gone, no way to get them, no way to earn them, this, that, the other, they're just out there, out of existence until randomly they decide that they're gonna appear again. I feel like it's total BS and it should not be a system. It is so predatory. It really brings out the FOMO in people of having to spend this, spend that. And it's not good for anyone except for the greedy billion-dollar companies.
Reverberate around the world. And as evidence, how's that USB-C charger on our phone working out? There's a lot to talk about. Strap in. This one could actually, honestly,
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Good. Oddly enough, you've got EU legislation to thank for the standardized phone charger situation and for many, the ability to play ROMs on their iPhone. But now we seem to have EU legislation to thank for premium currency being threatened. So here's what went on. In September 2024, the EU proposed the Digital Fairness Act that was targeting all the practices online that make using digital services miserable. And in particular, it called out dark patterns in video games as one of the targets. And that's basically the gross manipulative techniques that trick and strong arm money out of people.
I feel like we really should have, as a whole, should have been fighting against this, because it's been doing nothing but extremely predatory and harmful to people, creating addictions. I mean, all in all, gotcha games are just straight up gambling. There's nothing to it. It's actually worse than regular gambling. Because regular gambling, yes, you can throw money at it, but there's a chance. Now, albeit not very high chance for the most part, because the house always works against you, but there is a chance that you make your money back. There's always an end goal of, I want to take more money than what I threw in there. Okay, cool. Now, let's look at gacha games. What's the end goal? it's always a lose-lose because you throw money at the game, you lose the 50-50. All right, you didn't get your character. Sucks. Let's try again. Throw money at the game, you win the character, you still lose. Now, why do you still lose? Because all you did was get pixels that you do not own. They're just on your account. You don't own that game. They're just on your account, and you still lose that money no matter what. So you can't bring that character anywhere else. It's only going to be on that game. So what happens when you want to just play something else? You're tired of that game. The devs do something you don't like. Well, now you never made anything from that. So gacha games are always a lose-lose no matter how you think about it. I love gacha games. I'm still not going to be blinded to the fact that it's just a lose-lose if you throw money at it. It's just how it is.
Obviously, especially applying to people who are not yet adults. And this is fairly weighty because in the EU alone, games are obviously big business. Revenues have been going up in the EU. Online game spending in 2018 represented 74% of turnover coming from online revenue and 83% by 2022. That's all of those fun, dark patterns actually working and getting digital currency money out of people. But those dark patterns target the most vulnerable people the most. And there's no one more vulnerable in the eyes of the law than children. Children who spend an average of €31 a month on online games, according to data from Video Games Europe. Well, that's actually went down from 2023. I guess that's good. Everyone's feeling a little bit of the economic pinch, but it's not stopped the EU from taking action to protect kids, basically, from predatory premium currency models. And in situations like this, there's often a great offense.
And it's crazy because you can look at which gacha games are specifically trying to target children. Take Genshin Impact, for example. They're specifically trying to target children. Target the very vulnerable part of the community, with the very cartoonish, very kid-friendly aesthetic that they have going on, the very dumbed-down dialogue. Let's be real, extremely dumbed-down dialogue, and just really everything about it. It has very vibrant colors, like it's a kids' TV show. They're really trying their hardest to make it as dumbed down and happy-go-lucky, just things to really bring children in. Genshin isn't the only people, obviously, but is just the most prominent one, as well as the one that is on screen currently. It's unfortunate, but it's very clear. There's a very clear difference between games like this and games like Wizardry. Wizardry obviously is not catered towards kids. They're going to play it for 2 minutes and get upset because they're dying constantly. Very opposite to this, where you could just brain dead smash your head on the keyboard and you'll end up winning eventually. It's just two very different scenarios.
Right? That is held up as an example of something doing everything wrong. So you might wonder, is it an Activision game? Is it Ultimate Team from the EA football games? Maybe it was Roblox. No, today, it's a game about horses. It's called Star Stable. You've probably never heard of it. But if this all does turn out good, we'll have the horse girls to thank. This is Star Stable Online. It comes from a Swedish developer called Star Stable Entertainment, and it is the game that may have just rewritten rules and monetization in the EU. So yeah, thanks, horse girls.
This looks like
it turns out that Star Stable just uses all of the premium currency tactics in the book, which makes it a pretty awesome example, right? Especially because it is targeted at a younger audience. So in March 24, the Swedish Consumer Agency filed a complaint with the EU-wide Consumer Protection Cooperation Network. That's a mouthful. And that complaint alleged that Star Stable Entertainment were targeting children and using harmful commercial practices that breached EU consumer regulations. Now, the findings...
Now, why is it only on this one? This no-named have to do nothing with anything game that is changing everything. I mean, awesome that it is, but we couldn't have done this on a bigger game or done it sooner. We had to wait for this game to come out. It doesn't make any sense.
Corroborated much of those allegations. They found that the game made direct appeals to children in their ads, that they were using pressuring techniques like FOMO, which is particularly despicable when it's not, on adults, and there was a lack of transparency on purchases and loads more things.
This feels like every game ever, honestly. this is very you could pull out 95% of gotcha games, and this would apply to every single one of them. This is not specific towards this
I mean, here's an
horse
example
gaming.
of one that's particularly rough. They were responsible for influencers promoting the game to kids without any disclosure of the spending risk. So, in short, it's bloody well damning. Star Stable Entertainment now have a month to address complaints and propose solutions with their game, but what
Ooh.
matters for our purposes today is the Consumer Protection Cooperation Network, we can just call the CPCN. They have laid out what they want. So I'll spell.
It was the final nail in the coffin. They're like, these damn horse games are trying to steal money from our kids. That's the last straw for me. There ain't no anime waifus in here to distract me this time.
Spell it out via an example. This is what should happen in the ideal world. You, dear gamer, want to buy yourself a new horse. You see that your new horse costs the world.
What?
You, dear.
Am I crazy? But are these two just the same horse? They're are they just the same horse? It's just in different positions.
Dear gamer,
Crazy.
want to buy yourself a new horse. You see
Maybe I'm just not a horse aficionado.
that your new horse costs 300 star coins. The store tells you that's around £5, so it just lets you buy 300 coins exactly. You buy exactly what you need for the horse, rather than the current bundles that exist of 200 coins or 400 coins, meaning that you always have to buy with some wastage, which just ends up giving the company more money. So in short, no obfuscation bullshit, no weird tactics. And worst of all for these companies, this will have them bloody well shaking. You'd have to have a refund policy, both for the coins and the horse. And none of this would be pitched as a limited time event where you have got to get the thing right now. So that's an example then of how these policies should be applied, and each is indeed a massive win for consumers. But that would not matter
Agreed.
if this amounted to nothing. You could look at all this and think, right, so some Swedish horse game has got a slap on the wrist. No, it's more than that. This seems to have backbone. So here's the big important bit. These solutions are the backbone of what the European Consumer Organization calls key principles for trustworthy gaming environments. And these could cause huge problems for anyone who is using premium currency. When I say this could shake the foundations of the game industry economy, I absolutely mean it. So these, which I'm going to spell out for you, are the minimum requirements for purchasing and using virtual currencies in the EU.
I feel like the I said this before. I feel like they need to just any kind of bundles dish the premium currency out in total. You have the free to play currency that you earn by doing like picking up chests or doing in game challenges or whatever. That free currency. But any bundles that are in the shop, they just need to have a dollar price on. It's just as simple as that. There needs to be no in between of premium currency this, premium currency that. Then you guys convert this to this to this to this and go through something that you could have been done in one. They do that deliberately to try and confuse the consumer and try to get more money out of them, just like with the big currency bundle. You can't buy certain amounts that you need, like 1600 for this or 1700 for that. You can only get things in like 2000, 3500. It really shows that they do try and squeak out as much money out of you as possible.
And what's neat is the philosophy behind them. So the CPCN considers these premium currencies as an equivalent to the real money that is used to purchase them. And that for them means that they are just as worthy of legal scrutiny. So you can see how that is in a way a mindset shift that paves the way for actually treating.
So they can't get away with just having people throw money at them, because now if it's getting treated as a real currency, refunds and everything will be available. Ooh, they're gonna get fucked.
Treating these as they are. So just think about the last game that you played that had a premium currency in it. Whatever that game is, I want you to keep it in mind. And with that in your mind, I'm now going to go through the various different practices that this targets. So, prices for premium currency packs that are a little more than the available product. So you've got to buy extra coins, extra gems, whatever it may be. Obfuscation of how much currency is worth by always pairing currency with other items or multiple currency options. As an example, I think World of Warcraft may actually fall for that.
Okay, so this was something that has always pissed me off. Like, I played Overwatch. Overwatch did this shit constant, where they would throw in sprays or uh these little like poses or whatever that you would never use to artificially boost the bundle value. It made no sense, and it always pissed me off beyond belief. Whether I was getting that or whether I wanted that bundle or not, it would always just piss me off to the point of, even if I did want it, I would refuse to get it because it just made no sense. Them doing this has got to be one of the most irritating things that they think they can get away with.
That because it includes Trader's Tender in one of the new mount bundles. Another one, a complete lack of a refund option for making currency purchases or even for in-game items. So there would have to be a refund policy. That's something none of us are used to in these games. Also, FOMO practices to encourage buying. Those are going to be looked at, so some of those may no longer be allowed. And all of these practices are now something that the EU can hold against developers and publishers. Even more so if the parental controls of said game are not up to scratch. So it's less a case of me saying, can you think of any game that falls into those categories? And it's more me saying, can you think of a game that doesn't fall into those criteria? It's very humongous, which might indeed be the point here. We know this is something the EU have been thinking about in other circles.
And you know, I have been talking a lot about gacha games, but just like when I said Overwatch, there's Overwatch, Fortnite, Marvel Rivals, COD, everybody with these systems, these premium currency bundles where you throw money at the game, get these currencies, and do whatever with them. I feel like they've just been kind of just let go and just released into the world without any regulations whatsoever. Sure, we have some here or there to try and keep them in line, but it's just kind of been the Wild West out here. They've just kind of been doing whatever and just getting away with it. So if we can finally crack down and really say, hey, you guys need to buck the hell up, or we're gonna have some problems, and get all these developers in line, we can actually have a non-predatory gaming environment. Hopefully, I understand that is the end game, and I'm not sure how well it'll work, but hopefully we can get closer and closer to that utopia.
Circumstances than just Star Stable. As an example, in September 2024, the European Consumer Organization published a report on popular online games, and in that report, they targeted Diablo 4, EA Sports FC 24, Minecraft, Fortnite, and a bunch of others, and it was all about how the virtual currencies work. They were not thrilled on what they found in those games, right? Because many of them, well, they did the same things that, Star Stable did that we do not like. And that straight up means we can say that Electronic Arts and Blizzard Entertainment are being directly targeted by this body.
Good. They
really
deserve
something.
it.
So it's no wonder that the BEUC will be holding workshops to help European companies implement these new principles. Because it seems they may actually have to implement them. Everything that they previously thought was acceptable pretty much.
Yeah, look at those bundles, man.
Workshops, they may actually have to implement them. Everything that they previously thought was.
Yeah, these artificial bundles. Oh, you get a 10% increase on this, a 12%, a 15%. So make sure you buy the bigger bundles, because statistically, you get a higher percentage. So spend the big money, you get more coins, big bang for your buck. Disgusting. Honestly, just disgusting.
Acceptable pretty much now isn't. And here's the shocking thing. That's not my commentary. That is what the industry response has been, so we know they are shaking in their boots. It ain't surprising the industry bodies aren't thrilled about this, and a big shout out to one of our Belgrade Games members, Neo Nebulosa, for directing us to this stuff. So, the European Game Developers Federation and the Video Games Europe, or two groups basically, they've published a joint statement that expresses their disappointment with the findings. Let's read their statement. Quote, "We are disappointed by the lack of engagement from the CPC network in creating these principles, which introduce new legal theories and misguided interpretations of EU consumer law that will create confusion and disruption for European customers." Sidebar. Oh no, we're going to be disrupted by sort of annoying predatory stuff going away. What an awful disruption.
Oh no. We have to try and be considerate and not be greedy douchebags. Oh, the horror, the humanity. What are we ever gonna do? If only we can get your support in these trying times. Oh God. Yeah. No one's gonna shed a tear for you guys. At all. It's been a horrible time on a long time coming for game companies to finally be held accountable, because all they've been doing over the last 10-15 years is just making things more and more predatory instead of getting things that were already made into the game. They started becoming DLC, and then as DLC became more and more streamlined, they started adding little bits of paid cosmetics into the game instead of earning them in game or achievements like it used to be. And then once that more got streamlined, we got battle passes. We switched over to a free to play model instead of uh a buy once and get to play, right? Because you make more money if you're a free to play game that throws cosmetics and battle passes at you than you would as a uh pay once and then you just get everything. Of course people are going to want to make more money. But it's just been evolving in the wrong direction, and hopefully we can regress that a little bit. It's just been so rough, and people are just getting too used to it, too numbed by the by the just greed of the companies nowadays.
Back to the statement. It will also present a challenge to the industry's future growth and could even deprive millions of consumers access to their favorite games. Now, that last bit is the interesting thing. So, understandably, right, these groups representing
we can't scam you, so we can't keep the game running, guys. Oh, please donate money to help us. Oh, buy more cosmetics. We're broke. I only have $1,000 bills to wipe my ass with. Oh God, please help us
one of the
all.
most powerful players in the industry did quite like things the way that they were. Change is dangerous, especially to the bottom line, and especially change like this. But in a way, they're not inherently wrong. It is true that audiences do actually understand premium currencies by and large right now, and when implementing currencies, these companies were following, their best legal guidance, and now that guidance has changed. I guess just like how so many phones had like a bespoke charging cable until the rules just changed.
Yeah, the
in the
iPhone charger
of the game.
is stupid.
So now they've got to get used to these new rules. And what'll sting is the impact on their bottom line. They're not wrong about the potential impacts of all of this. Now, big companies like Ubisoft can probably absorb the costs of any legal challenges or damage from rebuilding their premium currency systems. They'll probably spend a whole lot to try and figure out ways around these principles. As for smaller companies, well, they may not find that so easy. But where things will be dramatic is the group's final warning, because it's the most threatening one. It's the idea that players in the EU may just be locked out of video games. They'd say with a game like Overwatch, right? That they would simply choose to geo-restrict access to the game rather than change their monetization model or to just continue the game as.
See, if they do that, they're of course not going to refund any players. So if people spent like $150 or whatever, anything from $1 up, they are just gonna pull out and you're not gonna see a penny of that back. I guarantee you if that's what they do.
Normal and risk EU lawsuits. It could just be they look at the EU and think, you know what, we make enough from the States and other countries, we really don't need them. That being said, the EU population is kinda huge. Overall GDP is obviously a very, very flawed metric, but as an example, right, just Googling this here in 2024, the EU's nominal GDP was about 17.9 trillion and 1/6 of global nominal GDP, which is quite a lot of money, and a hell of a lot of that GDP globally will be in other countries like, say, China, where a lot of these companies will not be able to go in and directly monetize. That could actually mean that they will feel the need to change. And in a way,
Hopefully
there
they
are two
do.
wolves inside me who are fighting, right? I suppose one of them is the pragmatic wolf. The other one is the almost like the last vestiges of some sort of libertarian idealism that says, let the market decide. If the gamers do not like the bad practices, the gamers shall not partake in them. And
See, the only problem with that is we're all stupid as shit. We cannot like something, but we're guys. We want things. We want to just see them. If we see a pretty skin, we want to get pretty skin now. We don't want to wait. We want it now. We can't let the market decide. We're too stupid to let the market decide. We're just a bunch of
the
lemmings.
market will solve the problem. And I wish that was true, but I feel there's almost a faux idealism in so much of that, because these psychological hooks, these psychological triggers, they do actually work. We're in a world where you can very easily make, I think, some sound enough, philosophical arguments very much against regulation and all of that. And I totally get that. I'm fairly sympathetic towards that in many cases. But the thing is, we've also got to be pragmatic. And a part of that is being a bit humble about the human condition. And the fact of the matter is, these practices are not popular. People do not like them.
No.
Yet,
No, we hate them to
people's
bits.
behavior does continue. And these obviously are bad. And as people who enjoy video games, we see that as these types of practices derive more and more revenue, they then become what the companies focus on. And that is worse for the actual video games. Because I suppose in a way, how much
It almost feels like the developers are focusing more on cosmetics and things to drain your bank account than they are on actually making the game good and improving the bugs, improving gameplay. They just want to focus on making money. They don't make money off of you playing the game. They make money off of you throwing money to look good in the game.
of game industry revenue comes essentially from psychological manipulation and these various business strategies that are designed to rake in revenue in a way that's not like really tied to the experience of a game that you purchase. We've just seen the share of that increase and increase and increase, and it's no wonder that as that is increased, the rest of us have become less and less satisfied with games. So in a way, if this does hurt the revenue of a bunch of companies and unfortunately leads to a bunch of job losses because these types of practices are no longer viable, good riddance. Good riddance, absolutely. Let the companies fail, let those jobs go down.
Absolutely. If your business model as a company to keep you afloat is, let's be as predatory as possible, let's throw as much garbage at the player base and hope they buy it as much as possible, and it's not your focus of, let's make a good game so they want to support our good game, you deserve to fail, 100%. There should be no other solution. If you don't make a good product, don't think you're just gonna float off of being greedy. Make a good product. People will give you money for the good product. Make the skin secondary. You got to have a strong base, otherwise everything will crumble.
We run things should be a dialogue between the private and public sectors, and in a case like this, I think it's an example of the public sector, right? The people essentially saying, we actually do not like this practice. We don't want this to be the rules of the game. We want the rules of the game to change, to be more robust. And the market will, once it adapts to that, find a solution. And if the new rule set is a better rule set, then that should be a net good. But of course, none of this will matter if there's no enforcement. Because one country making a digital consumer policy often will find difficulty in enforcing it because you're just one little guy. Mr. Belgium, right? That's why, even though Belgium has banned loot boxes, so many games simply just ignore that and still operate in the country. Like in World of Warcraft, in the new raid, one of the bosses is basically a slot machine boss. We always have the joke that for the person in our team that's in Belgium, that boss just can't drop any loot. I don't know, there's an EU firewall or a Belgian firewall. That's a joke, but you get the point. As much as many people have kind of went, oh, Belgium, you take him down, it hasn't really mattered because it's just Belgium, just one little guy. It's a bit different here, though. And that's because the EU is, 20.
It's not so much a little guy anymore, is it? It's a moderately good sized guy, a big guy even. Hopefully the big guy can support the little guy and start making a big change in this bad gaming world.
26 other countries, and also Belgium. In 2023, it was worth 25.7 billion euro in game revenues. That's a lot of revenues. And we know that their legislators are willing to take on the likes of Apple and Google when their rulings are being defied. They have done that. But more than that, the companies inside the EU are, part of a big global network, and that does mean that whenever USB-C cables become standardized in the EU, they then become standardized everywhere because of manufacturing limitations. I'm sure Apple would have loved to have continued just selling people Lightning adapters in the States, but ultimately...
Yeah, the Lightning thing was so stupid, dude. They wanted to be all fancy and special, like, oh, you can't use our shit. We have this special fancy thing. We're not like you peasants. And the EU said, you know what? You're gonna be like us. You ain't gonna do anything in the EU. And they're like, oh, okay. You don't need to be mean about it, though.
They seem to have saw the way the wind was blowing and made the big change to USB-C. No one wanted to have, of course, a whole factory just making EU-only phones. And again, thinking about the impact that would have had on the whole ecosystem of manufacturing partners, blah, blah, blah. So you can see how with hardware, it does kind of make sense. We can see, though, software examples where it's not really the same thing. It's not like you can just go and get an emulator for your iPhone in America, but you can in the EU. So the question then is, will developers want to risk losing a large slice of that EU-derived money? Or will they simply have to ship a cut-down and less exploitative version of their in-game monetization to European countries? If so, it puts them in a fun little dilemma where the American gamer may get a transparently worse deal than, say, the...
Yeah, if they say, screw the EU, I ain't gonna do the business there. They pull out of EU, EU loses. Big uproar. If they compromise with the EU and they do the very transparent business practices, they are gonna get a huge backlash from America. So the only time that would come out even and not have someone up their ass is if they become transparent universally. That is the only way that they'll come out of this without getting burned on one side. Because, damned if you do, damned if you don't type of scenario. So you might as well just become transparent and just not become shady ass companies. That's just what you got to do. That's just how it should be. That's how it should have been from the start.
European gamer. And then you can say, well, compare your store to mine. My one is a bit more respectful, doesn't have as much FOMO, doesn't have as many tricksy bundles and things that basically feel like a scam. And that'll be a bad look. That's the dilemma that these companies face, and in a way, it's all thanks to a game about horses. So, hero of the day? Horse girls. I guess that's a thing. Okay, tell you what, though, if you want another story,
awesome.
Another big, grand, juicy story.
That this is blowing my mind. I hope that this will affect more than just the EU, and it'll spill out. It'll start leaking over into the rest of the world, because these would be amazing changes and something that I've been hoping for years that they would do. Because in reality, it's just been nothing but like bad news after bad news. But I think these changes would be great. Becoming transparent, not becoming predatory. It's all good stuff. All good stuff that I have wanted for so long. And I think a lot of other people have been wanting for a very long time. Well, fantastic video, Belluer. Uh, fantastic. Leave him a like. I'm gonna link the video down in the description down below. And don't forget to like my video and subscribe too if you want some more of this content. Have a good one, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.